believe in what you are pursuing because it is humbling. Nobody's gonna get it. People are gonna judge you. You're gonna lose friends. You have to sell your nice car and you don't get manicures and pedicures because you'd rather double down back on your business. It's not glamorous. It ain't sexy. It fucking sucks. You're gonna cry a lot. You're gonna find out who you really are.
Oh, Stefanie Jewett dropping the heat on y'all way early. First few seconds. Damn, coming in with the facts. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 81 of the Andrew Deitch podcast. Had to double check. Happy Friday. Hopefully this comes out in time so that you can maybe listen to this during your commute back home. Maybe you're hanging out this weekend. Let me just say that this has been one of the craziest weeks I've ever had, I swear. In the past 4 days, I've recorded like 5 episodes of the podcast, edited like 4 or 5 videos, shot some videos and photos for multiple clients this week. It's been absolute madness. And with all that being said, I've been trying to upload this podcast since like Monday. So it's Friday now, but hey, it's all good. I'm working very hard. So I'm very excited to share this episode with y'all today. By the way, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, thanks for checking it out. Very, very excited that you're here. It's an absolute pleasure to bring you meaningful, uninterrupted, I should say, conversations in person with all of you lovely people. And that is absolutely what I love doing. Sitting down with amazing and inspiring people and getting to have a real conversation with them. It's the best. I have so many amazing episodes coming up soon. So very, very stoked about that. But before we jump in, I should say, this episode of the Andrew Deitch podcast is brought to you by Brooke Watson from Keller Williams, Chattahoochee North. And in case you missed the big announcement on episode 80, Brooke is an amazing real estate agent and a friend of mine. And instead of me just reading some dry ads every week, I wanted to bring you something unique, something fresh, something I actually hadn't seen anyone else doing in this podcast space. So you came here to listen to a conversation that will hopefully bring value to your life. Hopefully you learned something, and that's exactly what I want to do with these ads as well. So over the next few weeks, instead of reading a boring ad, I'm going to play a quick little 1-minute snippet from a conversation I had with Brooke this week, and I want to lead with value first. So hopefully you get to learn something, and I'll be right back in a second to jump into the episode. There's definitely all ages of people that are listening, so let's start with like somebody who is tired of dealing with their current rental situation.
Or roommates are just, they're just sick of it,
they're sick of it.
Cycle.
And like for me personally, I wouldn't know the first thing about like getting my first place or buying a condo or anything like that. So how would you help those people if that was their situation?
So the first thing you have to do is talk to a loan officer. Just right off the bat, see where you're at financially, see how much you can afford a month, because that determines, say you super want to live in Sandy Springs, but what if you just can't right now? Mm-hmm. You know, that's the first thing we do. But, you know, I don't want to get you hyped on all these houses
that you can't afford. Or maybe you can afford something a little bit more, or maybe you don't want to. So the first thing you do is get hooked up with a loan officer. I know several, and I'm not super brand, like I'm not just going to push you towards a brand. Gotcha. You're not like brand loyal to a certain loan officer.
Yeah, I think you should always shop around, because depending on your situation, whether you go FHA or conventional or you're a first time home buyer, there's different programs for you. Like there's teacher discounts. So you need to go with someone that's the best for you. And I always give you a list of people.
All right. Thank you so much, Brooke. If you have any real estate related questions, make sure you send them my way so that I can have Brooke answer them on the show. And if you're interested in working with her, please go to brookewatson.house. That's her website, BROOKEWATSON.house, HOUSE. That is her website where you can connect with her. Again, thanks to Brooke Watson of Keller Williams, Chattahoochee North for sponsoring this episode. Alrighty then, let's just jump into the episode. My guest today is my amazing friend, Stefanie Jewett. And Stefanie is the founder and CEO of Activvely mobile app, which is basically like Tinder for platonic fitness buddies. everyone knows that when you have someone to work out with and be accountable with, you stay more motivated, right? And I know that's the case with me, but maybe you don't have any fitness friends, or maybe you want to get involved in a new area of fitness and you don't have any connections. Fear not. It is very simple. You make an account. Well, first you got to download the app, but you download Activvely, you make an account, say a little something about yourself, what activities you're interested in, and bam, you are instantly shown other people who are looking for the exact same thing as you. It is a no-brainer. And after losing her job at CNN, Stefanie decided to go full force with this idea and hasn't looked back since. And in this episode, we talked about her journey, her ups and downs, what she's learned along the way, and what it is like to be a woman in tech. And recently, Activvely has been throwing these amazing events every Tuesday all over Atlanta called Turntable Yoga. It's an absolute blast. And if you live in Atlanta, you got to come out next Tuesday for the final Turntable Yoga of the season at Monday Night Garage. It's Tuesday night, but it's at Monday Night Garage. That's the name of the place. Monday Night Garage is a Monday Night Brewery. That's a hard word to say. Anyways, it's going to be a blast. I'll be there. But anyways, I'm going to shut up now. Please welcome my friend, Stefanie Jewett. All right, it's official. We're live. Stefanie, what's up?
Hola, hey y'all.
All right, so on my podcast, I always like do a little introduction before, so people kind of already know who you are, but in your own words, just tell us who you are and what you do, you know?
So my name is Stefanie Jewett. I am the founder and CEO of Activvely mobile app, and that's Activvely spelled with 2 V's. So Activvely spelled with 2 V's is Tinder for fitness buddies. It basically helps you find people in your area to go hiking, biking, do yoga, check out a new bar class or something that you haven't done before, Zumba, salsa dancing. Just basically somebody who has similar fitness goals nearby, and you can set the gender, guy or girl, or it doesn't matter, and the age range. So you really get to find exactly who you're looking for.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I am a member of the app, so I have
Thank you.
used it. It's very cool. So I like to kind of share people's stories of how they got to where they are and everything. And I know a little bit of your story because you kind of shared it at the Turntable Yoga events that I've been to, which is really cool. But just to kind of give people some context, take us back. Give us the quick history of Stefanie. Where were you born? How'd you get to where you are today? And you can, share as much detail or as little detail as you want, but
okay.
Take us back.
Take
us back down memory lane.
It was a cold, bitterly cold January evening. No, I mean, that is true. But so I am from Miami. I'm born and raised, and I'm first generation Cuban American. So I sometimes have a little accent y'all might hear pop out. So, but I am from Miami. I'm Cuban, first generation. And so really how I ended up at Activvely is actually through CNN. I'm a former producer. I'm a journalist by trade, and that's what I did for a really long time. And I was here in Atlanta at the headquarters. And so I'll tell you what led me to create Activvely, because it was literally because of CNN. So every day when you leave work at CNN, they have the big red letters right next to, Phillips Arena. But underneath that, they have a gigantic private gym with a pool for only Turner employees. So every day I get out of the show ends at 4 p.m. You do a post-game wrap-up, and I go downstairs and I have all these coworkers and girlfriends to meet up and go work out with every day, and it's super motivating. Cool. So DC asks me to relocate to, CNN asked me to relocate to DC. So I do, and now the show that I relocated for doesn't get off air until 7 p.m. You have a post-game wrap-up, you have research because it's a political show, and so now I don't get out of work until 9:30, sometimes 10 p.m. And it made it really difficult to find friends who weren't drunk from happy hour, who weren't already home in bed or eating dinner to work out with. And so it was because of that move, because of CNN, and not being able to find people who had the same interest as me, but who were free when I was free. That led me to create Activvely.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I definitely can relate to not having friends with the same schedule as me.
Yes.
And so I'm just like, I'm a lone wolf. I'm just going to pound it out by myself.
No, it's so demotivating. And
it is.
And I would say, in particular, when I was in DC, the gym is not right next to you. You have to take like 4 metro stops over, then walk half a mile, then go to the gym, then repeat to get home, however that may be. So it was like such an arduous task, comparatively speaking. I know it's like first world problems coming from Atlanta, but it's like, damn, do I really want to go to the gym, go through all this freezing cold, horrible weather, just to get to no, I'm just going to go home. And that was just, it kept happening over and over. And it's not because I'm not a friendly person, because I have tons of friends. I'm really social. It was just, like you said, an odd or a different schedule.
A weird schedule, and it didn't always work out. That makes sense. Okay, so to go back for a little bit, so you were, what did you exactly do at CNN? What you were behind the scenes, right? You weren't
I'm a producer, yeah.
Okay, cool. So like what led you to that? Like, why did you want to take on that role? You know what I mean? Like, because when you're younger, you're like, I wanted to be an astronaut. I want to do this. Like, why did you go down that path?
I love information. Like, I'm a news junkie, and it wasn't even necessarily, I didn't know how I wanted to be involved in journalism specifically, but I knew that I love information. I liked being a part of history as it was happening. Like, I remember the first day I ever had to be in the control room. I was training. I wasn't even supposed to be in the control room. And it was during the Arab Spring. And it just happened to be a Saturday night, and it popped off in Egypt or Tunisia. I can't remember which one was the first one of them because we worked so many of them, but I'm literally just supposed to be watching somebody, and they were like, no, we need you. And so I love that aspect of journalism. It is trial by fire, feet to the fire. You better do this, because all the heads of CNN are in the control room yelling, screaming. And so I like high pressure environments, and I like living history, and I like information.
That's really cool. So was CNN like your dream job at the time? Like, was that like amazing? Was it the best thing ever?
It was, and it is the best thing ever as far as journalism goes, but it wasn't like something that I planned. I remember thinking, I lived in DC twice before CNN. I was an intern on the Hill for a Florida Congresswoman, because she's Cuban also, Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. And I was like, before I pursue this political path, I'm a broadcast journalism major. I was like, I want to give this one last go before I switch over to politics and don't even try. And so I sent out, no exaggeration, like 120 resumes all over the country, from E! Network, anywhere that was TV. I sent out resumes, and CNN got back to me, and it was so unexpected. I'd never been to Atlanta, and it was because I had done 4 internships. And they were like, you seem like a mature, qualified intern to not get paid again. So let's bring you down. And it was because of all that experience that I landed at CNN. And then basically, I was like, I have to get hired. I have to find a way to make myself indispensable, and that CNN realizes no matter what, I was just a production assistant, but they hired me freelance. Yeah. And I just weaseled my way up to producer.
Very cool. I was going to say, is that Robert? Do we need to pause it?
It is.
Okay, cool.
No, it's not.
Oh, never mind. Well, no worries. Okay, so cool. So you landed at CNN. You worked there for
5 years.
5 years, and then you relocated to DC. Was that included in the 5 years you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. And then, so you were inspired to create this app. And I'm sure a lot of people, or you weren't necessarily, I don't know, were you inspired to start the app first, or you're like, this is just a problem, how do I fix it? Was the app like a natural thing, or what was the process of actually coming up with the idea?
It just kept, like so many people who start businesses and apps, it kept hitting me over the head. Like, it wasn't something that I'm not a tech person. I'm social media savvy, but I'm not a tech person. And shamefully, I didn't even know what code was. Like, I had just no concept of how an app even made it into my phone. Like, that's how naive, how big of a noob I was. So I couldn't avoid the problem. And I'll give you examples. Rob, my boyfriend, moved up to DC with me, and he is a faithful gym dude. He's a buff bro. And so, we move up there, and now he is in school and he's a bartender, so odd hours. So instead of being able to work out with like the guys here, he would have to work out with me to spot him. And so while I'm a measly spotter, he like shed a tear, like one single tear rolled down his cheek when he'd look at the meatheads lifting weights, grunting, slamming down creatine or whatever, meathead dudes do. And he's like, I'm stuck with you. And I was like, why don't you just ask guys, can you work out with him? He's like, no, that's weird. You don't do that. And then I had a girlfriend who wanted to train for the Peachtree Road Race while I lived in Atlanta. Nah, girl, I'm not going to run in June weather to train with you. How does she find somebody? And the last one, I have a girlfriend from Australia who's climbed glaciers, which I didn't know was a thing. She's climbed like the Himalayas, Patagonia, like amazing high-level climber. She's cool. She's friendly. She's like, how the hell do I find people that climb at that level? Because I'm like rookie Stone Mountain hike, and I get like break a sweat. Like,
right? Yeah, Stone Mountain's like not a hiking. That's like, yeah. Kids and stuff can do it.
Yes, they can. And it makes you so angry. You're like, how can this be so easy for you and so arduous for me?
Right. That's really cool. Okay, so you're like, there's obviously this big problem. And it totally makes sense. Like, it's very true. And it's interesting how like Tinder and Bumble and all these apps have been created to like form like relationships as far as like, you know, you're dating and stuff, but there's nothing that's really out there that's like a friendship type of thing. And I think Bumble's kind of tried it, like they have the like Bumble BFF thing and like, but it's kind of weird. Like it's like, what are you doing?
So you literally took the words out of my mouth, because what I was going to say is like and this was like, 2014 that it like hit me. I was like, why is there not an easy way for me to find another cool chick to go do something with? And I was like, I can find love on, eHarmony and OkCupid or, Coffee Meets Bagel or whatever's hot right now. And I can find sex, Tinder, Grindr. You can literally have someone to have sex with, the most vulnerable. You're getting naked with a stranger, but I can't find somebody cool to go run with me or to check out a new yoga class.
Right.
So really, like, I was like, okay, I have to figure this out. Why is this not happening? And I think Bumble BFF is a bit tough. And I mean, I'm still a very startup, but I would say I think there's a lot of pressure under the title Bumble BFF. I think telling people that we're meeting for the explicit purpose of being best friends, even if it's just a quirky little, I think that puts an undue amount of pressure. You're like, now what do we do? Where do we go? How long do we hang out? What the hell do we talk about? This is awkward. This is weird.
This is a date. This is weird. Yeah. There's an app also called Shaper. Have you heard of that app before? It's like it's like Tinder for like professional meetup kind of thing. And it's really strange too, because you don't know what to do. You're like, do we meet up for coffee? Do we meet for 5 minutes? Do we meet for an hour? We're going to discuss like business plans. It's like kind of, you don't get what you do. And I like I think where you're going with this is like actively, it's like you're deciding what activity you're going to go do and then you go do that.
It's a low, I mean, if we're honest about it, right? Like people are adverse to change. It's not human nature to want to change or try something different or new. But if I gave, and even why fitness is our entry point into the market, it's not the long-term vision for the sole purpose for the app, but hey, you want to go play golf, so it's like whatever, how many ever holes, 18 holes or 9 holes or whatever, or you want to play a tennis match, and when it's done, hey, it was so great working out, or it was kind of awkward, and you're like, well, bye, and that's it. I think it's psychologically palatable to a human being to do a specific activity. You know what exactly you're going to do, you do it, and if you like each other, you hang out again, and if not, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, that's very true. And I was kind of thinking about this, like the normal way that you like find a workout buddy is just like by chance kind of. Like it's typically not like unless you're like on a tennis team or whatever, and then you have your tennis friends or like, but like you were saying with Robert at the gym, it's hard for dudes to just go up to like a couple of other guys working out and be like, hey, can I work in with you guys? Like that's weird.
Super
like
weird.
It just is weird. So that's actually, it makes so much sense for that app to exist.
And I would say that it's just sorely needed, and I see it everywhere. Like, I'm going to go psychology with you, but like one of the standards for psychology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Number 3, like the first thing that you need as a human being, like to exist, you need like food and water. Like you need physical survival. The second thing you need is safety. So like shelter, that you're not like against the elements. And the third thing, this is how important it is humans need love and a sense of belonging and community. It is the third most important thing to our human makeup, the way that we live our lives. It is the driving force after you've eaten, after you've had water, after you have a roof over your head. That is the thing that drives you, and there's still no easy way to connect. We're just missing each other. Because I worked at the 5th floor at CNN, I didn't meet the girl who worked on the 1st floor, and we could have been best friends this whole time. It's just, even friendship is just happenstance or chance once you're out of like college.
Yeah, it's so true. And I've seen it like, it's almost like a meme, this triangle. It's like social life, work, and friends, and like pick 2 or something like that. It's like, social life, work, and fitness or something like that. It's like pick 2.
At any given time.
Yeah, because you're like, if I want to go out with my friends after work, then when do I work out? If I want to work out, then when do I have time to hang out with my friends? And you have to work.
Spot on.
So it's sad, but it's kind of true. And I love going into the psychology stuff. Like I'm super into that. And so when you brought up the hierarchy of needs, one thing that's really interesting is because we're living in this like such digital times, we think we're having a lot of social interactions, but really like the humans that we're interfacing on a day-to-day basis, a lot of times it's just like the people that we work with. And increasingly, so many people are working from home. They're working from a computer all day. They're not even like talking to that many humans. And then I think a lot of like, you know, not to get too way out in the weeds here, but you know, like we're talking so much about mental health in America right now and all this stuff. And it makes so much sense that, okay, maybe there's some like basic human needs here that are just not being met by how we've decided to kind of go as a society.
Because for all the ways technology makes your life simpler, it still isn't any easier to actually real life connection with people. It's still not easier in a platonic way, right? I have a friend who, and this is like so, you know, makes me sad when I think about it, but I am Cuban, I am first generation, and we're warm, we're huggy people, so if I see you, I'll hug you. And I remember that she told me one day, her fiance lived halfway across the world half the year. And she's like, you know, I go to work, I work out, and I come home and I cook dinner. She's like, and if it wasn't because I see you at work and you give me a hug, I would literally have no human contact for days and weeks on end because her man's not here.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, like that's some shit to really think about. Because I invade everybody's space and I'm hugging everybody, so whether you like it or not, I'm coming for you. But to think that for a person who might not be in the same culture, you literally don't have human contact.
Yeah. And like, again, not to go down this rabbit hole too hard, but one thing that I started getting into actually late last year was yoga. Yes. And I didn't think that I would be like that into it. I was like, oh, it's kind of, you know, going into it, I'm like, it's kind of for girls, blah, blah, blah. But I heard a lot of good things about it. I wanted to try it. And the more that I realized that it wasn't even just about the actual exercise, but it's also about being in a room with a bunch of other humans all doing the same thing. And like, not that you're doing it together.
Shared experience.
It's a shared experience. And like, you might accidentally like touch the person next to you or like fall. And like, you know, it's that weird vulnerability that it's kind of awesome.
A sense of community.
Yeah, it totally is. And even when you go in and it's kind of awkward, like you're sitting next to you, don't talk to the person next to you or whatever. By the end of the class, you might have like bumped them. And then at the end, you're like talking or whatever, like, hey, see you next week or whatever, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
And so I think that the current state of fitness sometimes doesn't lend itself to being so community minded, especially when you're just going in to like lift or whatever. Like it's hard to have the interaction with other people.
Without Activvely.
Yes, exactly. So let's get back into that. So you had this idea, it kept hitting you over the head, and you're like, you even said it yourself, you didn't know anything about coding and all this stuff.
No, I did not.
And I've even heard this, like, as a generation, we're not actually tech savvy. We always hear about that. We're tech dependent. Like, we know how to use the tech, but we actually don't even know how it works.
No.
Like, it seems like magic.
That's a really great and important distinction because I fell victim to that. So here I am in DC and I realized the show got canceled. And they were like, hey, you know, you're fantastic. And the show got canceled because it was Crossfire. The show got canceled because MH370, the airplane, went missing and blew us out of broadcasting. Our show kept getting blown out for breaking news. No updates for 5 months straight. The public just loved it. So at the end of it, they're like, you know, our show just can't get traction. We're going to cancel it. But I had been working on the Situation Room in Inside Politics and all these different shows. And they're like, hey, we really want you to stay. We want you to work on these shows. And this idea kept coming to me. So it's like, you know what? I got to take my chance. And I hadn't left DC yet. But the very first thing that I did, and I hadn't even thought about it, probably in 2 years now, the very first thing that I did to figure out how the hell to build a mobile app, I Googled it and I saw that there was a workshop at 1776. Like their General Assembly in DC, it had just opened. And in order to get people to sign up for their 3-month incubators and classes, they had free workshops. So I made Rob come out with me. I was like, dude, please don't let me go alone. I don't know anything. I'm such a like loser. I don't want to be embarrassed in front of the tech community. And so we went and they explained what is a mobile app. And I was like, now I know what a mobile app is. What's my next step? And it was like one small step after the other. And I moved back to Atlanta and immediately enrolled into coding boot camp and learned HTML, CSS, and Ruby on Rails. But I'm not, don't try to like get into like a hacker games with me. Leave me alone. I'm like,
no, I definitely, you're already light years away on that regard from me, at least. In college, I took this like intro to Android app thing. And like I did so bad, and I thought it would be really good because I'm like kind of nerdy and like I listen to tech podcasts. Like I'm in that world, but as far as like coding and stuff, I don't know. I
It's
need to
literally
practice
another
more.
language.
It's another language. Yes, it's called a language for a reason.
Yes.
So you literally were like, I'm gonna code this app. It wasn't like I'm gonna go find someone who can do this for me. You were kind of like, I need to learn how to do this on my own.
I mean, let's be real. It's my money. It was like, I'm bootstrapped. I don't have it. Mommy and daddy aren't shelling out a mill for, a cool mill for some amazing team to build it for me. I was like, how do I get this done as quickly and as cheaply, because I am no longer at CNN, as possible? So moved back to Atlanta because I love Atlanta, but also low overhead. It's a great place to be, the busiest airport in the world. So it had, we're number 3 for Fortune 500 companies based here, and just all the elements of like a great place to build a business in tech and not move to San Fran and live in like commune hippie style.
Yep.
So, I moved back to Atlanta, took coding classes, and that's what kind of everything that I did was a foundation, like a building block that gave me more confidence. So I learned web design and I built my own websites. And then I learned Photoshop and Illustrator, and I learned like one skill, like, well, I don't have a lot of money. How do I graphic design for myself? How do I?
Yep. I'm right there with you.
Yes.
It's totally, it's super fun for me because I love like learning all this stuff. It's not always practical once you need to like delegate that stuff out.
Yes.
It's hard to, like, for me, I'm kind of a one-man show right now. It's hard for me to find the right person that's going to be like, okay, I want you to edit my show, but I want you to do it the same way I do, like, so you've got to like give up some of that a little bit. But so you're bootstrapping it, you moved back to Atlanta, and Rob moved back with you?
Yes.
Followed you?
Yes, sort of.
Very cool.
We're a team, so
that's awesome. That's great. Very cool. So what you kind of decided, okay, I'm going to do this app thing. Did your friends like think that it was crazy that you weren't trying to go back to CNN, or like what was that timeline like?
It wasn't even necessarily my friends. It was my family.
Yeah.
It is, you better have some fucking thick skin if you think you're going to go and launch. Like all these people that have like these, I'm going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. And I'm not saying that's not a real dream. Like that's a dream that I also share. But you better have some thick skin, because people are going to knock your vision down. What was so plain for me to see, that everywhere I look on Facebook, people are throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping somebody goes hiking with them. Like I see it and I screenshot it all the time. But people were like, I don't understand why would you leave? My mom's Cuban. She's like, I like telling my friends you are CNN. Where are you now? And she has that accent, so it's not.
Yeah.
She really does. She's like, your health insurance. Which is all very reasonable. But I was like, damn, don't you believe in me? Don't you believe in my dream? Nah, son, you better take your ass back to CNN.
No, that's totally, that's, it's funny how much parents, they want, and this is a blanket statement, but a lot of parents, they don't even necessarily want like, they want stability and they want like predictability a little bit, and they want to be able to just like put you in a box and say this thing. Like when their friends like, oh, what's Stefanie doing? Like, oh, she works at CNN. Like it's real easy, real simple. And like for me, I actually I went to GCSU in Milledgeville for school, and then after my first year, I dropped out. And like my I think a big part of it for like my parents, and it, like especially my dad, was like, oh, so what are your kids doing? Oh, my son's at UGA, blah blah blah. Yes. Oh, what are your kids doing?
Yes.
Oh, my son dropped out and he's trying to do this thing, or it becomes like this whole conversation, and they feel like they have to explain it, and it's like a reflection on them that their son is a failure or whatever, and that's really hard. It
is brutal. I mean, I would say in particular when it comes to immigrant parents or parents that are first generation, you usually come from a really awful country. Like shit's been bad there.
For sure.
So they're completely risk averse. Like, yes, they'll come here and start businesses or whatever, but generally speaking, it's like traditional brick and mortar, you're going to have a return within like a couple of months.
Definitely.
But they just want to see you settled, right? Like they just,
security and it's like we moved away from this shitty place because we wanted to just have some sort of like security and stability and like not have to fear for like some other thing that we can't control.
But they can't project their fears on us. Like
exactly.
You have to really, it is the gnarliest, like the most intense gut check And, you know, even apart from my parents, to your original point, you tell people I'm going to build an app that it's to find fitness buddies. And it was like I was, you know, the expression speaking Chinese to them. They're like the quizzical look on their face, like, what doesn't make sense? You find sex, you find love.
Yeah.
Why don't you think that we need, and I think I am right on time. I think, and I'm not kidding, because I've been now watching this since, you know, I started this whole journey, January 2015. So it's been a minute.
Wow.
Yes. Like even like learning how to code, moving back, like all of that has been, you know, 3 years and change now. But now people are like, oh my God, what a great idea. I can't wait for you guys to grow. You know, we're still an MVP, minimum viable product. So it's still a really basic app by design.
Yeah.
But we're like, I can't wait for you to get this feature and this feature. Like, okay, now everybody's like, but I guess, you know.
Yeah. Oh, no worries. Microphone fell. See, but as a production assistant, you know exactly.
Yeah.
There we go. So where were we just talking about? Okay, so you moved back to Atlanta, January 2015. You're doing all this stuff, and now you have like a small team of people that are helping you as well.
Hell no, there's
right?
no team helping you.
Yeah,
Fuck?
no, not at this point. I'm saying
no.
like currently.
Yeah, no.
But at the time, it was just you. Like,
Solopreneur.
so what did you do to kind of like gain traction? What kind of things were you doing as this small startup? Like, you know, because you're saying people were telling you, like, you were talking to them and it sounded like you're speaking Chinese.
Seriously.
So like, what kinds of things did you learn along the way that helped you to help people understand your vision better, or whatever it was?
Okay, so I'm going to give you something really, really tactical on the actual tech side of it. One thing that you learn that is necessary, a necessary evil, people, when you should have a 30-second pitch for any damn business that you do, I don't care if it's tech, in 30 seconds or less, you should be able to tell somebody clearly what your business or what your vision is. And if anybody looks at you with a furrowed brow, they're holding their breath to kind of react, you still don't have it. Like, and that's where my media sensibilities come in. So I'm saying this because, so initially I had this tagline for Activvely, the way I described it, which was horrible now in hindsight. It's the social pairing app that helps you find people who want to do what you do. And when you see it, when you've had time to digest it, you're like, okay, social pairing, do what I want to do. And people were just like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And you learn by getting shut down so much and people looking at you crazy to now say Activvely is Tinder for platonic fitness buddies. You know, like you learn those things, but it is one of the most pivotal things you will ever do for your business is to be able to sum it up clearly. Because you only get a small window with certain people.
Totally.
So that is super crucial. And I think this now is Rob.
Okay, cool. We'll take a pause for a second. All right, we're back. We're back.
Hey.
We're live.
Okay.
Okay, so we were talking about the 30-second pitch, having your 30 seconds that you definitely want people to understand what your product is and everything like that. Was there, and you had originally this pitch that didn't seem to make sense for people.
No, and even, by the way, I just want to say, even the original name, and I bought like 70 versions of the domain, I'm not kidding. Okay, not 70, like 20, was originally Spot Meat, like a place for people to meet. And my friend was like, oh, that sounds like tainted meat, like tainted, like edible.
Spot Meat.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, Spot Meat, you know. And so I bought like all these versions of like, no. I mean, so it's just, it is a matter of, you go step by step and you learn what you can and you refine the processes as you go. And every time that you don't do so great at one thing and you kind of get better at it, it gives you the confidence to build into the next part.
Makes sense. So at that point, like, what mistakes were you making that you would advise other people not necessarily to make? Obviously, you learn from your mistakes, and everyone learns from mistakes. Mistakes are important. But I'm a huge believer in, like, that's why I love books. That's why I love listening to podcasts.
Saving someone else the pain.
Exactly, because you can learn from other people's experience. So, like, what were some of those pain points that you had that you can help other people avoid?
Well, I think it was, I'll give you one like grounded in reality one, which was, so I moved back to Atlanta. I decided, you know, I didn't want to do the CNN thing. But we moved back to Atlanta in April 2015. Like just a few months later, this is what we're doing. I started doing research, but I immediately, we stayed at Rob's parents' basement in Johns Creek. And I signed up for coding classes because the opportunity came up. and I was living out of a basement, out of trash bags. And so I'm saying this to say, if you're going to do something like take coding classes, which I strongly recommend, it's so important to know what, even if you're not the world's greatest coder, it's important to know what your developer is going to need to not get ripped off, to be taken credible, in particular as a woman, as a blonde woman. But I would not recommend undertaking something like learning to code if you're not stable in your life, because it is such a different, like literally a different language. It is like learning to speak Chinese, and it's the expression, but it is that difficult and that arduous. And I wish I would have given it the proper space. I was just so anxious, and the opportunity came. I got a scholarship. We'll take this much amount of money off for women, and if you join us, and I did, and it was a great experience, and it threw me in, but I didn't give it the time that it deserved. And so the other thing that I would say is, I think, if I can save you the pain of really having a realistic expectation of what this is going to be like, and I'll give you a couple of quick ones. I came from CNN, where I, relatively speaking, worked, it was either 11 to 7 or 9 to 5 or whatever version of that, but it was pretty normal. When you are an entrepreneur and you're just starting, your hours are yours, and there's no structure, and that sounds amazing. I have all the freedom in the world, but nobody's checking if you're moving your business forward. Nobody's checking if you did the trademark. Nobody's checking if you built a Facebook page, if you built a website, if you started nobody. It is just hours upon hours, and it took me a while, a long time, and it was really a struggle for me. You have no routine anymore. What is your routine?
When do you take a break from working? When do you give yourself the space to like have fun time?
How much do you work? How do you, I definitely wasn't as efficient with my time to begin with, and the other thing I would say is, because I wasn't as efficient with my time, because I was so new, I compensated for what I didn't know with things that I did know, and wasted time that way. For instance, I picked up gardening, I'm here, 70 plants, adorable, porch, and I'm doing all these crafts and all these fun, cute things around our new apartment. But it was because I wanted to feel good. I wanted victories. I wanted to feel good about something, because I wasn't feeling good about not knowing how to move a business forward, not knowing how to manage my time. So something to be aware of is now you're going to have to really check yourself. Nobody is going to step in and be like, well, your papers are due. Where, how?
Yeah. Cause we're living in the world where, like you said, everyone's aspiring. We realize that Mark Zuckerbergs of the world exist. So it's kind of this sexy thing, oh yeah, I'm working on this app, and on Instagram you're posting pictures of your plants and all this stuff, but actually moving your business forward is the thing you actually need to be working on.
And not having any blueprint of how. For most businesses, most people that are hearing this are building a traditional business. So get a checking account, create the work, find customers, repeat, right? Get paid, repeat. But for a true startup, and the definition of a startup is a business who hasn't found their business model, or a company who hasn't found a business model strategy yet. So what Facebook did for so long, how do you monetize? What Twitter, how do you monetize? You're creating something from nowhere. So because I can't do anything the easy way, I went this route. Fucking worst way ever. Why not just a marketing business? Why not just...
Right. Yeah. I definitely can agree, especially with the podcast and stuff. That's actually why I love doing the podcast in person with other people, is because I have a fire under my ass to put the episode out. Because if it was just me talking and it was just me writing a script or whatever, or that's the hard thing about making YouTube videos. It's just you, and there's no one
no accountability
out there begging for the content. You know, you don't have an audience. It's oh my gosh, when's the next video coming out? When's the next thing coming out? And now I do literally have a couple people that are asking me yo, when's the next episode coming out? Which is amazing. I can't, it's crazy to me. But that in the beginning wasn't there. And so,
it is a demotivator, by the way. If you don't have anybody, you're well, I put one YouTube video out there and nobody liked it. Fuck this. I'm done with, YouTube is dead to me.
Yeah.
But, having that self-motivation, that internal drive that, I do believe in this, and be sure that whatever you pursue, you really, really, really believe in it. Because if you plan to pursue this business, it's going to be you and this vision, this baby of yours, for a long time.
For sure. And there's this idea, I like to always go back and flip the script of like, okay, what is the person that's stumbling upon your thing thinking for the first time? Like, so if you go out there and you're putting one YouTube video out there, when they see your channel and it's got like no cover art and it's got like one video with 45 views, are they going to be enticed to even watch your shit? Like, no. Like, the channels that get your attention are the ones that have their stuff together and they already have 100 videos and they have lots of views and stuff because it's social proof. Like, oh, wow, thousands of other people are already watching this stuff and love this stuff. I might too. And that's the thing that I think people get caught up on is, like you said, they make one video and they get burnt out because no one watched it, no one liked it, no one commented. And it's like, well, what did you expect? Like, it's your first thing. There's
a quote that I think about probably 2 or 3 times a week at least now. And I heard it about 4 or 5 months ago. And the quote is, I'm a 10-year overnight success. By the time somebody discovers you, by the time somebody comes across your podcast, your YouTube channel, your app, and they see that you have like all this amazing, it's bright and it's shiny and big and people are interested, do you know how much work you have already put in? How hard you've had to grind to now even be on the radar? Like, so I think people believe in that, again, to poor Mark Zuckerberg, or not poor. Yeah, right?
Rich Mark Zuckerberg.
Yes, he's doing it.
Very wealthy.
Yes. But, we all look to that as a metric of like, well, if I haven't reached success in 2 years, and if I'm honest, I'm on year, 3 and I would say, probably 2 proper years. September 2016, I pitched my app. 2016, I pitched my app for the first time in public and I released it right after that. And so since then, I am just now getting traction. I am just now getting partnerships. I am just now really launching events. I'm just now having people wanting to be a part of my team. There's people who it might take a little longer. But, if you do not believe in what you are trying to create, it cannot sustain you. It's unsustainable. You might as well just stop and do something else and then figure out what you really want to do because you're wasting your time otherwise.
For sure. And it's this thing of like, my friend Kat, she had a live she went live on Facebook the other day and was talking about this, is like buildings with foundations, right? Like certain buildings that have poor foundations and they build a foundation really quickly end up having a lot of problems. And you see buildings that like, you're like, wow, that went up really fast, but you might have not seen how long it took them to make the freaking foundation because the foundation might have taken like 2 years and you didn't see before they even broke ground. You didn't see all the stuff that happened. You're like, wow, that building went up so fast, blah, blah, blah. But what happened all before that, it's kind of like the make your own luck thing. It's like work so freaking hard so that when someone important or someone that can be that thing that like flips that whatever, like, oh, you got overnight success, you got so lucky. Or for me, like that one podcast guest that like really it makes my thing blow up. If that was episode 1, like cool for me, but no one's going to really care. They're going to be like, oh, wow, he got lucky on the first thing or whatever. And, that just doesn't happen. But if I'm on episode 200 and that happens, people are going to be like, holy shit, this guy's like making these awesome podcasts for like 3 years. And why haven't I been listening to this before? That's what really happens. You can't, it's not
by the time
overnight.
You hear about somebody, or, Gary Vee is like, one of my heroes or idols. I don't know what's the right word here. Audio mentors. He doesn't even know. But, and he talks about that all the time. He's like, you didn't even know I existed. Literally yesterday he wrote this. He was like, you didn't even know I existed 15 months ago. What you're seeing today is 2 decades worth of work. Like you don't know what goes into it. So, and then to the point of really, man, you gotta believe in what you are pursuing because it is humbling. Nobody's going to get it. People are going to judge you. You're going to lose friends. You have to sell your nice car. Yep. And I sold my Benz and you don't get manicures and pedicures because you'd rather double down back on your business, live into Jeff Bezos, reinvest back into Amazon style.
Yep.
I mean, it's not glamorous. It ain't sexy. It fucking sucks. You're going to cry a lot. You're going to find out who you really are.
Very true. Very freaking true. So to go back for a second, like for some practical stuff. So you said you were having trouble finding your routine, you were having trouble finding structure. What was that catalyst that helped you find more structure? Like, how did you kind of solve that issue?
I don't think that I have. I'm not kidding. Like, it's harsh. And I think I'll tell you what, it's a question in particular as a woman. I ask every woman that I meet, like who's older, who's established, who's got her business off the ground. I was like, how do you manage it all? How do you balance it all? And invariably, I don't give a shit who she is, the CEO of whatever high-end company. She's like, no one does. You're just, it's not a well-oiled machine. Maybe for like Melissa Mayer when she was at Yahoo and she had the nanny or like, the daycare in her office. But there is no real, you troubleshoot the best you can. So on an ideal day for me, I wake up, I eat breakfast, I meditate or go to the gym and then come back and meditate. And then I start answering emails and doing all this. But so many days there's like, hey, there's a networking opportunity. There's a meeting at 9 a.m. So like, well, you're just scrambling because it's Atlanta traffic to get to that meeting, to get dressed, to be there. And then there's just so many variables. What I think is important is to try to have a routine as best you can that works for you. And you can't do it all. Like I'm like, cause this is something I struggle with personally. How do you have the time to work out, to meditate, to gratitude journal, to be great at social media, to stay up on pop culture,
to meal prep,
holy shit, to grocery shop, to be a good girlfriend, to be a friend, a sister, a daughter, a supportive, yada, yada. Yo, it's just not feasible. And that's the greatest lie that social media is like, especially again for women, that these Instagram perfect lives where everything is beautiful and perfectly whitewashed, filtered, and that is not real life, and real businesswomen don't live that way. Mm-hmm. They might be paying somebody to post that for them.
Yeah.
But it's not, I think you gotta be true to you and understand that. Last one, Sarah Blakely actually posted this a few days ago on Instagram. She's like, people see me now. She's like, but what you don't see was how hard I worked to get here. And, it's up. She's probably like 3 posts ago. And she said, for 2 decades, I did not go out. I did not have a life. I only just now started working out because I just did not have time. And she's like, that's what it took to get to a billionaire status. That's what it took to make Spanx what it is today.
Yeah.
So like, I think that's the part, believe in what you do. And if I would have known, I'd still do it. But damn, I didn't have a clear understanding of the grind. It is ruthless. It is brutal. And it's supposed to be that way because it's going to weed out the men from the boys and the girls from the women or the women from the girls.
There's a lot of sayings you could say there. Yes. Some that are a little more colorful than
Yes.
So, I totally agree. And to go back to Gary Vaynerchuk, talk about him all the time.
Yes.
But it's so true. Like, he always talks about how he was bagging ice for his dad in the cellar of the freaking wine store. And before that, he was like selling baseball cards. He's like, I was making like $3,000 on a weekend, and now I'm bagging ice for like 7 cents an hour or whatever. This freaking sucks. But it was what he had to do to be in the wine store and get in the family business.
And I think during the break, you and I discussed it a little bit. Even credit to you. It's what you're willing to do that everybody else isn't. Mm-hmm. It is more convenient to do a Skype podcast and not be face-to-face, but that the quality of interaction, the results, the audio, and the conversation itself, because you make the extra effort to drive all the way into Atlanta and, be here, speaks to your commitment to create something that you really believe in and to put something that adds value out. But I think a lot of people are, another quote, because I live the Instagram quote life, a lot of people won't start because they don't want to see starting from the bottom. Like, you won't even try, you won't even approach this thing because you're embarrassed or you're afraid of getting your hands dirty and people seeing you work hard from the bottom and scraping your way up. But
it's totally true, but everyone loves a good started from the bottom, now we're here story,
By the time 10 years later that they figure out.
Exactly, and that's why Gary Vee is always talking about like documenting. Like, if you start documenting now all the hardships and struggles and all this stuff, then people can go and look back and see the actual journey, and people love that. People love a good journey story. So to pivot a little bit, we're talking a lot about what it means to be like a woman in entrepreneurship, but we weren't really like talking about that subject. I would love to talk about that because it's kind of a hot button subject where, talking about like the gender pay gap and like women in tech, like underrepresented and all this kind of stuff. And you're a woman in tech, you're a woman entrepreneur, you're breaking the mold, all this stuff, which is really awesome. What does that mean to you? And like, what has that been like?
So I'm really, really grateful that I haven't had any like #MeToo moments, and I'm not trying to make fun of it. I'm like, I haven't had any of that since I've been in tech, since I've started this entrepreneurial journey. But I think, I I was being a media person. I was really deliberate with the way that I looked and the way that I presented myself when I first showed up. Like I didn't know anybody outside of CNN, generally speaking, like your general life is there, producers, other people. I didn't know any entrepreneurs. I didn't know people in tech. So when I moved back to DC, I took these coding classes. I cut my hair because I'm already a woman and I'm a blonde with long hair. Like I was like, okay, we got to cut literally some of this out, some of these biases that people might have. So I literally chopped off my hair and went shoulder length. And then I decided I was going to dress a bit more conservative. It wasn't even conservative because it was like I wore a lot of black because I went through like a goth, but it was also intentional. Like I want to seem, even though I'm new, Steve Jobs wore black for good luck, but it's also like a powerful color. So I made it a point to always wore boots to give me a little height. I know that sounds like so trite and it's things that guys don't think about, but as a woman, like I'm not short per se, but I'm shorter than a man. Mm-hmm. So when I walk into a room, I wanted to tip the scales, and I'm a psychology kid. So studies show that women who dress a tad more masculine, I'm not saying like dress like a dude, but instead of a dress, you wore pants and a blazer or a jacket, that are taken more seriously, or that men have a more favorable business viewpoint of them. So like I tried to, as best I could, being a TV person, how can I tip the scales to close that bias that guys, I don't think it's necessarily malicious. You just are used to seeing men in tech.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, to like the James Damore thing that happened at Google, where he had that whole document that was like released where he was kind of talking about why they're, not to go into the whole thing,
sure,
but
yeah.
People attacked him, and I think it was unrightfully so, because a lot of the points he made, they were pretty valid.
I heard the Joe Rogan, I'm with y'all.
Yeah. And like he's a really smart guy, but one thing he said is like guys have a like proclivity for being in tech, and women just generally don't have it because the things that are like attracting them are just kind of different. Like, and it's very interesting. That's a whole nother subject, of course, but the interesting thing, like that you were saying, is guys perceiving women as kind of like not an outsider, but they see, for example, a woman that's like on TV or whatever, they're thinking like, oh wow, she's beautiful or whatever, but they might not respect her
right.
as a peer,
yes. Yeah.
Which is very odd. And I don't even exactly know why. There's a million reasons that contribute to that being the case. But like one thing I heard on this podcast recently that was very interesting was this guy said there's a difference. Like you can envision in your brain a woman who is hot but not beautiful, right? And you can envision in your brain a woman who is beautiful but not hot. And I was like, whoa, you're so right. And so it's almost like a woman who like dresses quote unquote like hot. You don't respect them as a peer because you're like, she's probably stupid. She's probably just a dumb bimbo that's like wearing all the makeup, but underneath it all, she's like dead inside and like hates her life and has daddy issues and, you know, like that whole thing. And so I think that, like, I don't know, maybe that's something that like contributes to it. I don't know.
I don't think that, okay, so I'll say this. I have a lot of really beautiful girlfriends, and especially since I'm auxiliary into the fitness space, I know a lot of really physically beautiful women who are actually really smart and don't initially get the credit. So I feel their plight, and but what I would say is, for me, what was true to me, because every woman has to walk her own truth, right? Whatever is true for her. But I knew that from a psychological standpoint, there was already going to be an innate bias. And I'm not saying it's right, it's wrong, but I'm saying I didn't think it was malicious, like intentional, but that I was going to factor in as best I could. If I'm walking into a meeting and it was all guys in tech, and this is the first time they've ever met me, I always wear makeup. Like I'm a girly girl. There's no mistaking that I'm like a girly girl, but I also accounted for what I could. So tall shoes, a black blazer, a t-shirt, like, you know, I kind of, now I'm more comfortable and I'm more established, and now I have a really good reputation in the community, and people know that I'm a hard worker and that I mean business. And so it's like, now I get to wear more of what I want. Yeah. But I was cognizant of coming in, I don't want you're not going to dismiss me. I'm going to make it really fucking hard for you to think that I don't deserve to be here, or that you're going to dismiss my intellectual.
Exactly. Like, you're coming into the boys club, you got to do something a little different. And I think that totally makes sense. And I like the idea of being intentional about it, because I think a lot of people, they're like, I don't understand. Why aren't they accepting me? Well, it's like, well, there's a million factors of why that might be the case. And the other thing is it's not like, it is intimidating for a woman to be in tech because it's so male dominated. Yes. And that is like part of it. But also, having those people to aspire to, people look up to, it's not always something that like clicks in people's brains. Like, for a guy, you see someone like Mark Zuckerberg and you say, oh, I can relate to that. Yes. And I want to be that. Yeah. For a woman, it might be harder and you might not have that mentor or that person that you can look up to in that space.
Or a lot of times the women that we have seen, or these caricatures of women that are, like ruthless, they don't care about their husbands or kids, or, these ridiculous archetypes that we see on TV of like what it means to be a successful woman. She's like a harpy. She's like, a real ball buster, whatever the hell guys said in movies back in the day. Like every, 90s. Yeah, she's, but it's been so revolutionary to see women and now guys, because like Reid Hoffman is like somebody, the founder of LinkedIn, seeing people that are kind, conscientious, that are ambitious, and they're going to make money and they're going to work hard, but they're also people who are going to be compassionate along the way and care and intentional and thoughtful. Like that has been, in women, but also in men, has been, I think, revolutionary to see.
For sure. And like you mentioned the Me Too movement a little bit ago. And one thing that kind of a lot of people are saying like, oh, it's a dangerous time to be a man and all this stuff. It's like, not really. It's like, it's just a dangerous time.
Be a pervert.
It's a dangerous time to be a shitty person.
Yes.
Because everything is being exposed. Like everything's out in the open. Like if I'm, to go back to Activvely, if I find someone on the app and then I look at their Instagram profile and they're a weirdo and like, I'm like, I don't know, like this is weird.
Yes.
But if they seem like a normal human and people are interacting and they have comments and all this stuff, it's like social proof. So it's like, it's not that there's this, oh my gosh, there's this attack on men and blah, blah, blah.
I don't think so either.
We need to all be very mindful that like, don't be a shitty person and respect other people.
Yes.
It's not hard.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not hard.
Yes. But it is.
Yeah. It is hard because it's in our nature to be dismissive. It's in our nature to think other things are dumb that are different than us.
And I would say, I never thought it was malicious. And as a girly girl who wears a lot of makeup and I'm a blonde, but I always do lead with, I make sure that immediately I'm smart. Like I lead with my intellect. So I'm going to drop a couple of words. I'm going to drop some facts on you real quick to kind of just let you know. But I hope it's not mostly malicious. I think it's just unaware. Like a lot of guys don't know those biases, but these kind of conversations help. For sure.
And I think podcasts are super important because it's a place where you can have a long form conversation. That's what, like, for example, like on TV, it's hard to have like this super long conversation because there's no
you live in sound bites
for it. Yeah, exactly. You live in sound bites and people are going to take you out of context and all this stuff. But when you have this like long form place where you can talk about this stuff like this, that's where things are fleshed out. That's where we can talk about ideas, and maybe you're wrong, maybe you're right. It doesn't matter. But that's one thing that I personally love about this format. But let's go back to Activvely. So now you're, like you said, you're respecting the community. You've really plugged in. You're starting to get traction. You're having events.
Yes.
What was the inspiration behind like the events and all this stuff? Because that's one thing that's really cool. The turntable yoga events that you've been having recently, that I've been a part of.
Yes.
So what was the inspiration for that? Like, how'd you come up with that stuff?
So this is like tactical advice. I'm really good at strategy and I'm really good at branding, all of that stuff, but on a budget. So the truth is, one, if my technology right now, I just got a CTO, so he is just starting the next version, a really much nicer version of the app. But if you don't have $1 million and you don't have amazing, beautiful technology, how are you moving your business or your brand forward? So what can I do to move forward in lieu of those two things right now? I can either say I'm going to wait and somebody else is going to develop this, or I move forward and I do community building and I create positive buzz. So even though today my app isn't right now, it functions, it's cute, it's just fine, but it's not Tinder, it's not Bumble level, and that's, where I'm at. But in lieu of that, what can I do? I can make you like the brand. I can give you the warm and fuzzies and I can do good for the community. And that's how you create brand loyalty. loyalty, because it's no longer enough, especially for millennials, for our generation, it's no longer enough to just be a brand who creates a product. Like, sorry, back in the day that worked Macy's and that worked for all these other brands, but even Toys R Us is going down. What's important to us now is not only a good product or a good service, is that we believe in you and in your morals and your core values. And so what I can move the needle on right now, immediately, was creating something fun for the community, something that Atlanta doesn't have right now. There is no event like this in Atlanta. I looked. I was like, there's free yoga all over the city, but if there's free yoga everywhere, what can I do to make it fun, to make it unique, to make it a worthwhile experience that gets you to come to Mother upstairs on Edgewood, versus the place next door that's hosting free yoga every other day. So it is very intentional. It is very strategic, but it's also sincere, right? And that, I would say, is my motto, or like kind of the mantra that I live by. Everything is sincere but strategic. And I don't know that that's an oxymoron, but everything is aligned. It's true to me. It makes sense to the soul of me, the person, and my core values. But it also makes sense as a business. It moves the needle. So the reaction to Turntable Yoga, has been fantastic. And a lot of it has been because of your amazing work. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Your video was really, truly, like, I'm not being facetious, a game changer. The way that people viewed the brand and the app, and by extension me, has been so significant. I'm so grateful to you for that. But it is, so, the first event, we're begging for venues. The second event, we're still, begging for venues. And now we're having venues offered up to us. And
that's so dope.
And people are like, hey, I saw what you're doing. How can I be involved? How can I send you food or, like these samples? And how can we give stuff away? How can we be a part of this? So it's like, what I would leave any entrepreneur with is like, you can look at all the things you don't have. You can look at all, and there's always going to be something you don't have access to that you're not great at. If you're good at tech, maybe you're not the warm and friendly salesperson. But you have inside you every single thing that you need. Every component is in you to be successful. And it's incumbent upon you to figure out how to make that happen. And so I'm not a hardcore coder, and I'm not, stacked with millions of dollars. But what I am really good at is building community, being authentic, and giving people value. A fun event that's going to make them remember and like Activvely. And as the app gets better, they're going to stick with us.
Exactly.
And tell their friends. And it's happened that way.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I read recently. So I just finished Gary Vee's book last night. We keep talking about Gary Vee. I swear, this is like the Gary Vee ad podcast.
He's the nicest guy. I met him in Tampa a month ago. And I'll just say this. He looks you directly in the eye and he makes you feel like you're a real human being and you exist. And that was the mark of how good he is.
I love him. But in the end of Crushing It, his new book, he says, I think it was actually a section from Andy Frisella. Andy Frisella has a podcast called the MF CEO podcast.
Yeah.
He's awesome. And one thing that he said was like, social media is just like a megaphone for how you really are, kind of. So it's like, if you're a shitty business, like, and you don't treat people well and your intent is not in the right place, it's literally just going to be a ramp for your downfall. Like, all social media is going to do is just speed up your death because it's going to expose you more for what you really are. But if you're an authentic business, if you're actually providing real value, if people are truly enjoying your thing, social media is simply just going to be an accelerant because it's just exposing the conversations and the interactions that are already happening in real life that might not already be on the internet.
I love that.
Yeah. I that really, really stuck with me. I was just like, this is amazing. And another thing that I wanted to mention too is like, when you come up with those types of concepts, if your intent is in the right place, like for me making the video, I literally like made that video so for people that are listening, they don't know, I made like a promo video for Turntable Yoga. I went there and shot the video with my friend John. It was really awesome. And the thing is like, I had the intent of like making a super dope video, but I didn't know what the reaction was going to be. And then when it got put out and you said like, oh my gosh, you love it, all these people are reposting and all this stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And that's what happens like with events. It's like, if you have the right intent, you try to make something awesome and people love it, like it's the best feeling ever. And people are going to keep talking about it and they're going to be pumped and everyone wants to jump on board.
And the same thing with the podcast, like going that extra effort, going that extra literally physical miles that you're driving, like not mailing it in because you believe in the better product and the personal conversation and really cultivating and fostering that relationship and that experience for your listeners, then that is what separates you from everybody who's like launching a podcast or,
oh my gosh.
But I really think man, go big or go home. Like, and it doesn't have to cost you a lot of money, but did you do your homework and did you look around and there's no event like this? How do I separate my event from everybody else's? How do I make people have joy? We change venues and we change music weekly, and that's really hard. It is not easy. It is not cheap, but it's also, it's bringing value to people. And if that's how you remember your first experience with Activvely, and you met people, because I go around and individually meet every single person, because it's lonely to sit in a new place if you didn't come with a group of 6 friends. So I want to make sure the goal is to build community and to make people feel included and they had a great time and a great experience, and that they tell their friends about us.
Very cool. I love it. Well, I feel like this is a good place to wrap things up.
Yeah.
Is there any other closing message or anything that you would say to wrap things up, or anything? Obviously, where can we find you? Activvely, download the app, all that kind of stuff.
Download it. Tell a friend. I mean, it's a free app, so it literally costs you nothing but a couple of seconds. You can share from it in the app. And on social media, we're pretty fun. We are on Instagram at Activvely, and that's Activvely. That's Activvely with 2 V's. That's my corny plug. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. This is super fun. Well, Steph, thanks for being on the show, and we'll see you later, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Boom. There you go, folks. That was an interesting boom. Make sure you go download the app. It's available on iOS and in the Google Play Store for my Android homies out there. Pour one out for the Windows Phone homies, because, who even has a Windows phone? But seriously, Activvely is a very cool app, and who knows, you might even see someone you know in there. I downloaded it. I saw a lot of friends in there, and I didn't even know that they were interested in certain things. So I was like, hey, we could be fitness buddies, and why the heck aren't we? So again, that is Activvely with 2 V's. Search it in the App Store, download it. I want to thank again Stefanie for being on the show. Want to thank Stefanie again for being on the show. I can't talk today. And if you're in the Atlanta area, please come out and hang with us on Tuesday night at Monday Night Garage for some turntable yoga. Again, that is on Tuesday night, but it is at Monday Night Garage. It's going to be a blast. I can hardly contain my excitement. Thanks again to Brooke Watson of Keller Williams, Chattahoochee North, for supporting the show. And if you have any real estate needs, please consider going to her website, brookewatson.house. Also, let me know if you like the little convo at the beginning, or if you'd rather us do something else. Maybe you want me to read a boring ad. I don't know your life. Just let me know if you like it and if you want me to keep doing them, and send me any questions you have so I can have Brooke answer them and hopefully bring everybody more value. Anyways, thanks again for listening. If you made it this far, I appreciate the heck out of you, and I have a feeling that you probably want more. You're like, oh my gosh, this is the best podcast I've ever listened to in my life, but you want to listen to another episode, but you don't know where to start. I've got you covered. So if you enjoyed this episode, you're going to really love episode 48 with Annie Eaton. And Annie is the CEO of another tech company called Futurists. They focus on virtual and augmented reality development. She also serves on TAG's digital media board. She runs a VR interest group here in Atlanta that has over 1,000 members. And we met up at her office to discuss the future of virtual reality and all kinds of other fun stuff. And actually, just a few days ago, Annie was named the Rising Star of the Year by the Women in Tech Awards. Pretty dope. So you definitely need to go back and check out that episode if you haven't already. Again, that was episode 48 with Annie Eaton. Another episode I have a feeling you would love is episode 58 with one of my best friends, Katia Sarmiento. And she is a absolutely brilliant online business manager. She helps 6 and 7 figure digital small businesses. 6 and 7 figure doesn't sound small, but small meaning like there's not very many employees, but it's sometimes hard for these businesses to scale up. They kind of hit a ceiling, and she helps them scale up with the right systems and operations. She's a tech and systems pro. She basically takes businesses that are stuck, helps them systematize their business, which means more profit, more time, and more freedom. She's insane. I'm going to be doing another podcast with her very soon, but during our first episode, she shared about how she went from being a broke college student to becoming a super successful digital entrepreneur. She's also been a guest on like 20 other podcasts and radio shows. So needless to say, that was an amazing episode. If you're into digital entrepreneurship, you won't want to miss that episode. All right. Episode 82 coming up next. Shannon McKenna, lots of love for the ladies today. I'm digging this. Shannon is an amazing aerial coach. She's a circus performer. She's the host of the upcoming Artist Athlete podcast and the author of the new ebook. It's called Alignment Upside Down, a practical manual for hanging upside down. And she's sold, I can't remember what she said, but she's sold a lot of copies of that ebook. There was definitely a hole in the marketplace, and she has definitely filled it. She hosts workshops all over the world. She's inspiring so many people in that community. I had a blast talking with her. She's super fun and ambitious, and her energy is very contagious. That episode will be out on Monday, hopefully. Be sure to subscribe and all that shit so you don't miss it. Alrighty, let's send this thing home. I've talked for long enough. If you want to support the show, please go to iTunes, rate it 5 stars. That really helps me out a lot. Also, what else supports the show? Supporting my sponsors helps support the show, and also sharing the podcast with your friends. That really helps me out. Also, if you want to follow me, you can go to my website, andrewdeitch.com, where you can find all the latest episodes. You can also subscribe to my email list. I don't spam you. All I do is send out an email telling you when the new podcasts are out, so you never miss an episode. Thanks again to all of you guys listening. I love you guys so much. Please reach out to me and let me know what you think about the new ads. I'm very stoked about this. I hopefully I can bring you guys more value, and I hope you guys are stoked about it as well. Anyways, I will talk to you guys later. Have an amazing weekend.
You know, she's like a harpy. She's like, you know, a real ball buster, whatever the hell guys said in movies back in the day.